Hey, this is Jessica from goodenoughandstuff.com. Let's pick some Texas persimmon and make a bunch of stuff.
Whatever it is, we'll be fine. Give it to me, I don't
mind. Just a quick reminder to always use caution when picking things to eat in the wild. Do your research and compare videos and pictures before putting anything in your mouth. Check the shape and color of the fruit, leaves, and the seeds, and even check the tree bark texture and color. I think these are pretty easy to identify because of the berries, so once you're sure you've got the right thing, have a great time harvesting. Texas persimmon, also called black persimmon, can be found in central, west, and south Texas, also parts of Oklahoma and as far south as Mexico. Because they're extremely drought tolerant and disease resistant, you'll find them everywhere. Parks, stony and brushy areas along sidewalks, in landscaping around businesses, in the shade and full sun, and throughout neighborhoods. They typically grow to about 10 to 15 feet tall, but they can get as big as 35 feet. The leaves are small, oval, leathery, and curled downward on the edges. They look like they grow in clusters and are rounded on the ends. They can be as long as 2 inches, but they're usually smaller than that. It's a hardwood tree and semi-evergreen because in the more southern areas it keeps its leaves throughout the winter like some oak trees. Multiple trunks for each tree give it a very intricate look, and it grows in a very similar looking shape to a crepe myrtle tree. But the striking bark is really what sets it apart from other trees. It's gray, smooth and thin, and it peels away in large patches to reveal lighter shades of gray, white, and sometimes a pinkish color. It's really, really pretty. Leaves that stay through the winter, beautiful bark, and hardiness make it a great choice for landscaping. Just keep in mind they make a pretty big mess once they start dropping ripe fruit. I wouldn't plant them right over a sidewalk. Oh my gosh, you hit me with so many. I've seen some kind of weird descriptions of Texas persimmon trees, and some of them say that there's spines or thorns. I have not seen that at all, and there's a lot of them around here, so let me know if you have seen any Texas persimmon trees with thorns. Female trees produce fruit and male trees don't. You'll find ripe fruit in the late summer, but it can be anytime from July through the beginning of October. Round berries attached to the branch by a leathery calyx. The fruit starts out green and slowly turns black when it's ripe. It kind of looks like a really big black blueberry to me. Some blogs say they can be a dark purple color. I have not seen that at all. They look black, and the inside is like such an inky dark brown that it looks black at first too. They can be an inch in diameter with a slightly fuzzy skin. They're usually very fleshy and plump. It's very juicy, and if you split one open, it'll stain everything. So your fingernails will probably be brown after picking them for a while. The juice is so pigmented that historically it was used for dye, and it still is in some places. There can be anywhere from 3 to 8 seeds inside, but usually there's around 5. When you pick a berry, if you want to eat it, you just squeeze the fruit out of the skin into your mouth and enjoy. And then just make sure to spit the seeds out when you're done. The flavor is kind of hard to pin down. It's mostly just very sweet and not tart at all. My friend says it kind of reminds her of prunes, and it gives me kind of light melon vibes mixed with fig and prunes in there too.
Teeth in your tongue are all round, orange.
They have a pleasant taste on their own, but I really like to process them and make guilt-free chocolate pudding or use it in baked goods like oatmeal crumble bars you'll see in a minute. Just really delicious comfort food. The flavor also varies slightly from tree to tree, so make sure you shop around a little to get a good sense of the flavor. If you've tried them, what do you think they taste like? The fruit is understandably a favorite among wildlife, so you'll have some competition for the ripe fruit if you want to pick it and use it. When you go to pick berries, wear clothes and shoes you don't care about as much because it gets messy and can stain. You can lay a sheet down and shake the tree, then pick up the ones that dropped. This works okay, but you do end up splitting a lot of the berries as they splat onto the ground. The better method is just to pick by hand. Gently tug on each fruit that's completely black. It should easily fall off with almost no effort if it's ripe. If there's any kind of resistance, leave it and come back in a day or so. The fruit isn't usually ripe all at the same time. You'll notice really ripe fruit and really underripe fruit on the same tree. If you don't have enough to make a favorite recipe, rinse them and throw them in the freezer for up to 6 months. Then pick more fruit every few days until you have enough. You really could keep picking from the same tree for weeks and weeks. It's so cool and fun, and picking is my favorite part. I usually pick a ton and throw them in the freezer anyway because I don't want the pressure of having to use them in the next couple of days. And then they're easier to mash after they thaw anyway, so it's great. Just make sure you pull out any leaves, twigs, or bugs when you rinse them.
You're out where you're left could tell you how much I really care. Your harmless desire at the tip of your tongue. All of your bruises and all of your fun.
Originally, I put everything in a large pot and heated it and then mashed everything, but I don't think the heating was really necessary unless your berries are like really firm. If they're really ripe, they should be so soft that it barely takes any effort to squish them. So just mash the berries really well. I used a big chunk of wood in a bag to speed up the process. Next, you want to put everything through a fine mesh sieve. You want to strain out all the seeds and the skin and discard them. I don't use a cheesecloth because I want more than just the liquid. I want whatever pulp can get through too. Some of the pulp is stuck right to the seeds, so it'll take a while to get every scrap of it off the seeds. It's kind of annoying. I've heard a food mill is good for this kind of thing, but I'll just have to invest in something like that for next year. Oh my gosh, this was such a pain that after a while I just got what I could with a wooden spoon and sieve, and then I just gave up because I couldn't take it anymore. This takes so much less time and is way less irritating if you don't care about all the pulp stuck to the seeds. Once you've got everything strained, strain the juice one more time because there's usually a seed or two that made its way through somehow. Now you can use this sweet, thick tar juice for whatever you want. You can freeze it too, or use it right away. I've got a few desserts I like to make, including jars of jam for Christmas presents, and I will show you how to make all those things right now. To make healthy, no sugar added, super delicious chocolate persimmon pudding, start with 3 cups of juice in a pan over medium to low heat. Bring it to a low boil, and then boil and stir until it reduces by half. Reducing means you just boil it and the water evaporates to make it more concentrated. For this recipe, you want to reduce it until you have about 1.5 cups left. That means you'll have to pour it out a few times to measure it. Or another method is you can take a wooden spoon, stick the end into the liquid before you start boiling, and then mark it at the level of the liquid. Then just keep sticking it in until the level is half that. Make sure to stir frequently and don't really walk away because it can bubble over even on low heat. It should take about 20 minutes to get down to 1.5 cups. Next, mix in 2 tablespoons of salted butter and 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Then whisk in 2 tablespoons of cocoa powder until totally incorporated. It'll thicken more as it cools. And that's it! It's slightly fruity, rich, but healthy chocolate pudding. It has kind of a tang to it that you get with dark chocolate, and it tastes like dark chocolate covered berries to me. It's so good. It's gluten-free, and it can even be vegan if you change the butter for something like coconut oil and a tiny pinch of salt. If this is the only thing you make with the persimmons, this pudding is well worth the picking and processing of the berries. And I feel like chocolate really makes sense because when you look at the berries and the juice and how dark and thick and brown it is, it looks like it should taste like chocolate. And then when you eat it, it's like kind of a unremarkable vague berry flavor instead. This chocolate pudding really gives me what I've been looking for the whole time.
So tell me, are you still in there? As beautiful as you are, you just don't know how far. In this world I'll be right by your side with arms, even if you don't want. You wrote your name in my heart.
Now let's make something that really showcases the persimmon flavor on its own. Persimmon oatmeal crumble bars. Yum. Start with 4 cups of the unsweetened persimmon juice again and reduce it over the stove by half again so you end up with 2 cups of concentrated thick liquid. This takes about 20 minutes again. Remember to stir frequently so that it doesn't burn or bubble over, and it'll be messy because cooking with Texas persimmons just always is. It gets everywhere. Stir in half a cup of sugar and half a teaspoon of salt. At this point it looks pretty thick, but I want it to hold together when I cut it into squares, so I need to thicken it even more. In a small bowl, make a slurry of 2 tablespoons of cornstarch and 2 tablespoons of water. Pour that slurry in and continue to stir everything over the heat until it thickens up. Okay, take it off the heat and let's make the cookie part. For the oatmeal base, combine 1 cup of melted butter with 1 cup of brown sugar. Dump in 1 1/4 cups of flour, half a teaspoon of salt, half a teaspoon of baking soda, half a teaspoon of cinnamon, 3/4 cup of rolled oats or old-fashioned oats, and 3/4 cup of quick oats or instant oats. And mix all that together to get a crumbly consistency. It's important to use both kinds of oats because the quick oats will hold the bars together and the old-fashioned oats will give it the ideal texture. If you use all quick oats, it could be gummy, and if you use all old-fashioned, it won't hold together as well and it'll be real chunky. Press 3/4 of the mixture into a 9 by 13 inch pan and really pack it down. Now spread your persimmon filling evenly over the packed oatmeal base. Then sprinkle on the remaining oatmeal mixture over that. Bake at 375 degrees for about 30 minutes until the top has a nice golden brown color to it. Let cool and then slice into squares. These are really tasty. It's like the best oatmeal raisin cookie you've ever had. It's comforting and rich and the perfect dessert for the end of summer when you're just starting to feel the beginnings of fall. To kick it up another notch, use the persimmon chocolate pudding for the filling. Just make sure to thicken it with the cornstarch slurry so it'll hold its shape when you cut it into squares.
In this world I'll be right by your side with arms. Even if you don't walk, you wrote your name in my heart.
And let's make that persimmon jam. Rinse 16 cups of berries and mash them in a big pot with 4 cups of water. Bring that to a light boil and cook for 5 minutes, then strain through a fine sieve to get that thick juice again. Make sure to strain it twice to get those escaped seeds. You should have about 8 cups of juice now. If you have more than 8 cups, just rinse the pot, throw it back in, and boil it until it reduces down to 8 cups. Don't throw away any extra cups of juice, just reduce it so you have 8. Add 6 cups of sugar to 2 packages of pectin, then add that to the 8 cups of juice, plus 4 tablespoons of lemon juice. Bring to a hard boil and boil for 1 minute. I'm not sure what to call this. I think it's probably jam because the pulp does squeeze through the strainer, but it doesn't have any chunks of fruit. It has more of like a puree texture to it. I guess it feels the most right to call it a persimmon spread. It has a really nice taste, rich but mild and a little tart. The lemon does kind of take over the flavor, but you need the acid for safety if you want to can the spread using a water bath method, which is the only one I know how to do. If you want to see the process for how I can homemade jams and jellies, check out my video on how to make wild grape jelly. I'll leave the link below. Just like any other jam, the best way to eat it is on a warm piece of buttered toast. That's hard to beat. You can get about 7 pints out of this recipe. Tie some ribbons on your jar with a pretty scrap of fabric and they make sweet homemade gifts. You can also use the spread in any other recipe that calls for jam or jelly. I like to use it in croissants. Mix 3 tablespoons of your persimmon spread with 1/8 of a teaspoon of cinnamon and 1 tablespoon of honey. Then spread cream cheese, the persimmon mixture, and mango chunks onto 16 croissants. Top them with a little cinnamon and sugar, then bake at 350 degrees for 15 minutes or until golden brown. These are really, really yummy.
Whatever you see in your heart line, blame it on me, I don't mind. Whatever it is will be fine. Give it to me, I don't mind.
Hey, thanks for watching my video. I hope you liked it. I think these berries must have been really important at some point in time because they grow so easily and they're just like this amazing natural resource, but they've kind of like the mesquite bean pods, they've kind of like been lost to time also because when I was looking, there's just not a lot of recipes out there for using them. I came up with some on my own because they're just so fun to pick and it's hard to resist when you see like a tree that's just completely covered with them. Even if you just picked a whole bunch of them, it's just so hard to resist. You can find all these recipes on my blog and you can even print them from there. I will leave the links below. You can also find tutorials and dinners and other treats and stuff there, along with a bunch of other stuff that we've foraged and made jam and things with. So we are on the tail end of this persimmon season this year. Actually, in most places they're probably gone unless it's a tree that was like really well watered and like kept well. Like there's one tree that I know of so far that still has some berries on it. But sorry, because I'm showing you all this yummy stuff that you can't actually make right now. You have to wait like another year. I did try to get this stuff done before the season was over, and I tried last year too, but things just get so busy. The end of the summer, you're just trying to cram as much as you can in and get ready for school, and it's just too busy. So this is just, this blog and this YouTube video are just things that I do when I have time and when I am willing to get up early enough to work on it. So at the end of the summer, staying up late, you know, spending a lot of time together, there's just not a lot of blog work going on. This video is more of just like a heads up for next year, so the next time you see the berries, you can Pick a whole bunch, make sure you throw them in the freezer if you're not going to use them right away, and then just let them thaw and use them, and tell me what you use them for. What do you like to make them into, or just eat them plain? I don't know. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!
Your odd way of laughing, the curls in your hair. I wish that I could tell you how much I really care. You're harmless.